Welcome to the Greater Miami Expressway Agency Board meeting. I would like to call our meeting to order at 9 a.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance that Board Member Blanco would lead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So GMX continues to do great things in the community, and it's an exciting time to see continued investments by our agency. Now we'll ask our corporate board secretary to conduct a roll call of board members.
Thank you. Good morning. Chair Cancio,
Present.
Vice Chair Perez,
Present.
Treasurer Pages,
Present.
Secretary Blanco,
Present.
Secretary Miller.
Present.
We have quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Having quorum, next we have declaration of voting conflicts. Board members, at this time, please advise if you have any conflicts based on the items on the consent agenda or regular agenda.
I have a conflict, item 8A. I will be abstaining.
Duly noted. Now let's move to our public comment period. If you wish to address the board today on any topic, you will be given 3 minutes to speak. I will recognize Mr. Alston to identify those who have signed up to speak. Mr. Alston, you're recognized.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. There are no individuals scheduled to speak for public comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is approval of our meeting minutes from the January 25th, 2024 meeting. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the minutes. Is there any discussion or is there a motion for approval?
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Then all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Now we are on the consent agenda. I will now ask our acting general counsel, Rafael Garcia, to read the consent items into the record. Rafael?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. We have one administrative item. The administrative item is travel approval from May 4th to May 7th of 2024 to Atlanta, Georgia by Interim Executive Director Tori Alston to attend the International Bridge Tunnel and Turnpike Association Technology Summit. And then we have one human resources item, and that's approval of the proposed executive director job description. That's it. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board members, you've heard the consent agenda. Now is time to advise me if you have any items you would like to pull from the consent agenda. So, is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
So who's second? Okay.
We both
Vice Chair Perez. So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Next, we will move to the regular agenda. The first item is GMX procurement contract number ITB 24-03, system-wide pavement marketing rehabilitation with a contract award of $4,016,771.50. And I will now recognize Mr. Alston to introduce the item formally to the board.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning again, members of the board. At this time, if you're okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask our Director of Engineering and Emergency Management to provide an overview of the recommended contract and the benefits of this item. Juan?
Good
We
morning, board.
recognize,
Good morning, board members.
good morning.
Item 8A is for the system-wide pavement marking rehabilitation contract. This is to restore the condition of all of our pavement striping on the system. We had two bidders on this procurement, McShay Contracting and TRP Construction. McShay was the low bidder at $4,016,771. A bid analysis was performed and no irregularities were discovered. The engineer's estimate for our project was $4,013,000, so it's less than 1% over the engineer's estimate. We found that to be in order, so we recommend award of this contract.
I have a question. When is this going to start taking effect?
So we anticipate maybe like a 30-day to get the contract signed and executed. We'll start meeting with the team. I would say within the next 60 days, we'll start all the pavement restriping, and it'll happen by corridor.
So it will be completed in how long?
It's a 300 calendar day project, but we anticipate that the work will start within the next 60 days.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or? So, any final discussion? If not, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed say nay.
Aye.
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 Hearing no nays, motion passes. The next item on the regular agenda is GMX procurement contract number ITB-24-04, system-wide HVAC maintenance and repair services with a contract award value of $815,553.88. And I will now recognize Mr. Alton to introduce the item.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the board. I will ask once again our Director of Engineering and Emergency Management to provide an overview with your permission.
Yes, we now recognize Director Tamayo.
Item 8B, system-wide HVAC maintenance and repairs. This is for the maintenance and periodic repairs of all the air conditioning units in our facilities, headquarters, tow shelters, and so forth. This will be a 4-year maintenance contract for all the facility air conditioning units. We had 2 bidders on this project. Pilar Services Inc. was the low bid at $815,553. Our engineer's estimate was $946,000. We performed a bid analysis, and we had no irregularities that we found. So we recommend award of this contract, given also that it was significantly under our estimate.
Excellent. Any discussions? Is there a motion to vote, or is there a vote on this item? All in favor, say aye.
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 Hearing no nays, and motion passes. The next item on the regular agenda is item C, GMX procurement/contract number ITB-24-05, toll pavement rehabilitation of toll zones with a contract award value of $755,002.42. And I will now recognize Mr. Alston to introduce the item.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Our Director of Engineering and Emergency Management has several items on today's agenda. So with your permission, again, Madam Chair, I would ask for one to give an update on the item.
Director Tamayo is recognized.
Item 8C, toll pavement rehabilitation at State Road 112 at 32nd Avenue and 17th Avenue toll zones. This is basically to redo the pavement within the tolling zones to enhance to have better performance of the toll system as well as rideability through that area. We had 2 bidders. General Asphalt was the low bidder at $755,000. It will be good to note that the number 2 bidder was $766,000, so they were very close. The engineer's estimate for our project was $969,000. A bid analysis was performed, and we discovered no irregularities between the low bid and the second bidder. So we do recommend award to the low bidder.
Excellent. Any discussion? So let's vote on this item. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hearing no nays, motion passes. The next item on the regular agenda is item D, GMX procurement/contract number RFQ 24-04, General Counsel Consulting Services with a contract award value not to exceed $320,000. I will now recognize Mr. Alston to introduce the item.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. For this item, I'd ask our CFO to provide some background on the recommendation before the board. I'll actually tee up just in advance as the CFO gets ready. As you know, now the recommendation is before you. There have been a lot of conversation around the right approach to legal services going forward. As you know, in the current existing budget and the soon-to-be proposed budget that you'll be seeing in just a few weeks, we have contemplated having an allocation of dollars for litigation. Separate from that, also having, as previously, a contracted now general counsel, which is proposed before you. The good news is the item before you recommends a savings. The prior general counsel for our predecessor agency, I believe the salary was around $360,000. The recommendation before you is for an amount not to exceed $320,000. And I know that our CFO will also talk through the one or two additional documents that you have in front of you for the board's additional consideration. So with your permission, Madam Chair, I'd ask the CFO to go into some detail.
The CFO is recognized.
Good morning, board members.
Good morning.
This item 8D was a request for qualifications for general counsel services. Advertisement was released on December 6th for a variety of services from financial support, procurement, construction litigation, environmental, real estate. It should be noted in your folders, we there's a form that lays out the various legal services that this RFQ was procured for. If you want to take a moment to take a look at that, that's in your folders. We had a non-mandatory pre-bid proposal on December 20th, and we received one proposal on January 24th, and there was a technical evaluation committee on February 14th. With that technical evaluation committee, there was an oral presentation by the proposal. This contract is a 3-year contract with an ability to extend it for an additional 2 years. There's an annual cap, task authorization driven, 320 on an annual basis.
So is this going to be, when you say a cap, is it a flat fee, or are they going to bill by the hour up to 320,000?
So in the RFQ, there is language that the hourly rates can be negotiated. What was advertised, the cap on the hourly rates for the lead attorney was $550, associate was $400, and there is an ability within the contract to negotiate a lump sum for a particular task should the executive director would like to go in that direction. But the cap on the overall contract is $320 on an annual basis.
But when you say the cap is 320, are they going to limit their services when they get to 320, or they are just going to write off the difference?
It could be that, for procurement support, we could negotiate, well, for that service, it's $50,000 on a lump sum basis. To support, the construction could be on an hourly basis. So it depends upon the task. So it's task authorization driven, but the overall contract will not exceed $320 on an annual basis.
I understand that, but my concern is when you bill by the hour, I mean, I'm a lawyer, I have a law firm, I worked for big law firms for a long time. If you can easily reach this amount. So my concern is what happens when they reach this amount? Are they going to keep a separate tab, or what's going to happen? I mean, I thought it would be more like we're going to pay you $320,000 divided by 12, and you're going to do whatever we need you to do.
So if I could, Madam Chair.
Yes.
To the latter point, and we just had a very detailed conversation late yesterday, the CFO and procurement and I late last night. So I think to your point, we have received assurances from the firm that they will provide a full year long of all the services similar to what you referenced. And we've received assurances that we won't have to worry about them reaching the number or the $320,000 cap that we've already set on the contract that's before you. So we do believe that all the services, as stated in front of you, they can provide, they will provide, and we've received assurances from the firm that they expect to handle all of those services regardless of the cap that's before you.
And is there a contract for this procurement item, how do you retain them? Because we already have them as retainers, our outside counsel. So how is this different for this procurement item, CFO?
This would be a separate contract. So there's a separate contract for the litigation, and this is a separate contract for general services.
But you indicated the hourly rates and different rates, so.
Separate contract. So the litigation's a separate terms and conditions, and this was procured separately for overall general legal services. And these services, the hourly rates are incorporated into this contract with the cap of $320.
May I suggest that you just have a flat rate of $320, that they're gonna provide all these services on an annual basis, and this is what we're gonna pay them? I mean, maybe internally they can keep their hourly rates for their internal bookkeeping, but as far as we're concerned, it shouldn't matter to us. Like, we need these services done, and we need someone to do them. If we had someone in-house, they would be doing it. I don't wanna worry about the hourly rates.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think staff 120% agrees with that statement. So if the board would consider the approval based on what you just stated.
Board Member Miller.
I know exactly where you're coming from. I think I have my own concerns about how quickly we may run through this. My concern would be how it was advertised and what the elements of the advertisement were. I don't believe it was advertised in such a way where we can flip it, so I would ask that we discuss that before we.
Yes.
Yes,
CFO.
I don't know from the procurement perspective if we can
I'm going to
change the.
speak for our procurement manager, but there was hourly rates compensation within the RFQ, and there's also language on a lump sum. So should the negotiations be that on the lump sum, you're going to do all of these services, and the lump sum would be $320 for an annual basis, I believe the RFQ provided for that.
Excellent.
That alleviates my concern, but I too was also very concerned, wondering if we were going to run out of legal support sometime during
Right.
the year, which is obviously unacceptable.
Yeah, that is not the idea. And I just have another question. I know that there were two different companies that came and spoke, and only one presented this. What happened with the other two? Was it two others or one more?
So if I recall, Madam Chair, two attended the pre-proposal conference. I'm looking at the both of you. Only one actually submitted the proposal that's in front of you. See, I got this to memory. And 18 firms, I believe, pulled down the proposals originally. Is that right, 18? 13, 5 off. Yes.
So you know that the number of companies that got a copy of the proposal?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So the same firm is doing litigation will do our internal or do our general counsel services.
Well, this was news to me
Yeah.
because of the cone of silence. I found out about it. They have been working, I believe, with our interim general counsel.
Right. Now, I'm fine with that. The question is,
I believe there might be, and this is something that should be addressed, a potential perhaps conflict of
Yes.
interest
exactly.
when it comes to assigning litigation matters, because I think part of the job of a general counsel sometimes is to assign
Correct.
or procure or outside help for different matters. So that is, I believe, the only concern that I think they're doing an excellent job in the litigation front. They're all like top-notch attorneys. That would be just my only concern.
All right. So
How do you address that?
I agree.
And if I could, I'm talking openly to our acting general counsel, and you've heard the comments of the board, and I totally accept and agree with those comments. I'll defer to counsel if you have a remedy or recommendation based on what's in front of the board, and if there's some other remedy the board maybe could consider and propose now in advance of that.
I believe that the issue of the conflict of interest, I mean, if something comes up, I think that the law firm would be able to recognize that they have the inherent conflict. For the purposes that we have in front of the board today, having a separate litigation contract, we can handle all that litigation specifically on that one contract that we had existing with the firm. Anything further that comes up that could potentially become a conflict of interest, then, we should probably bring it back before the board for consideration of probably bringing in an outside firm to assist or to handle that outside matter that might potentially be conflicted out with the proposer.
Executive Director Alston, is that something that would come to you first, would come to the board? I just wanted to understand the mechanics, how it happens. If we had a person as general counsel and they need to hire tax bond attorney or they need to hire a litigation firm, how did it work in the past? Or perhaps our CFO can address that.
Yeah, I defer to the CFO just to talk about past practice, and then I'll make a separate statement.
Thank you.
As it relates to past general counsel services, that was a function of the executive director. Anything related to procurement matters or financial matters or construction law or real estate, things of that nature was handled internally between the general counsel and the executive director. When it came to matters of litigation, the board was informed of potential litigation. Litigation matters was handled at the board level. So all of that was reported through the board and handled through the board. Whether or not, litigation was to move forward, that was a decision of the governing body as far as who was going to handle the litigation.
Excellent, thank you.
And if I could just
Yes.
piggyback based on that, so then my recommendation, if the board were to consider and pass this item, we'd also, for your consideration, pass direction back to me when the conflicts are reported or recognized by the contracted counsel. I would immediately bring that back to the board and then, of course, recommend some remedy and proposal for the board's consideration.
Yes, Board Member Page.
Is that in policy? Is that in procedure in our documents? Or is this something we're just discussing now?
I believe it's more of a practice rather than
All right.
policy.
Can we put it into our process and procedures?
Yes.
Thank you. If it's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I had a question.
Yes, Vice Chair, you're recognized.
Yeah, and I think it's for Executive Director Tori Alston. Wanted to find out I know they have an office, I just want to confirm they have an office in Tallahassee and one in Miami. Do we have like a partner and associate in the Miami office? I'm just trying to figure out who do we have locally?
Madam Chair.
Yes, you're recognized.
Chair, yes, Madam Vice Chair, they do have multiple locations, and I'm going to ask our procurement manager, maybe just on the record, to state the cities and locations and any affiliates for the firm that's proposed.
One of the requirements was for them to have an operational office here in Miami-Dade County, Broward, or Monroe County, and they did put in their proposal that they confirmed that they do have an operational office here in Miami-Dade County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Pages.
But that brings, there's still a question that wasn't answered from the Vice Chair, right? Who's going to be sitting in that chair? Do we have a specific person who will be sitting in that chair? Or it'd be a rotating situation, or how does that work?
They do have a lead attorney, and the lead attorney that was proposed was Jason, and he confirmed that he will be the one taking the lead on this, and he will be available whenever.
No, Jason will be at the meetings? I don't think so.
He's from Tallahassee.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yes,
So,
Executive Director.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and again, I recognize the proposal that was sent. I also tried to stay a little distant from the technical response that I know that several individuals did review, which is also before you. With your direction, I think there is some additional due diligence that we probably need to work through if this is approved by the board. One, and I think during a few board briefings, or at least one or two, to identify the method and the person that would sit at each board meeting. the rotation of all of the, which I know you have the matrix in front of you, all the various practices that would cover what our needs are at GMX, the agency. So I think we need to have an additional dialogue before we go forward with any final execution of the contract based on the questions that I'm hearing from the board.
Yes, our executive director is correct. Before we execute the contract, they're going to provide us with a contact list of who exactly is going to be providing which services. They did provide in the matrix various staff members that can perform the services. And so before we execute a contract, we will receive a contact list of all the members that will be providing the different tasks. And we could provide that to the board members prior to.
Was it a part of the proposal that someone had to attend all our board meetings? Was that included in the proposal?
It was part of
Yes.
the scope of services, yes.
Yes.
Board Member
actually,
Blanco?
I'll tell you. Oh,
And that person may not be the same person for each of those meetings. It may rotate, or depending on who's available.
Well, we would approve this before we execute the contract. When they submit the contact list, we would review it with our executive director, and before executing a contract, they will confirm who that person will be.
Yeah, I just have a concern about continuity with the board, and especially in meetings.
So I believe that I personally am in favor of the amount at a savings as our previous general counsel. And I believe it's an excellent firm, but I think there's tweakings that have to be done so that we feel a higher comfort level that we're going to be dealing with one attorney at the board meetings. We already know who we deal with in litigation matters, but I think for general counsel, we need to know who is going to be the designated person. And obviously, something happens and someone else needs to attend, even if it happens with us, it's okay. But as a board, we need to know who to reach out to, not, all these partners in a big law firm. So I don't know if we want to vote on this with a caveat or modify this. I don't know if we can modify this to accept this proposal, but with directions to the executive director that before we sign the agreement, that the board needs to review that agreement and understand how the logistics are going to work. Any discussions here? Board Member Miller.
So I would agree that I think there are elements of the contract that need to be ironed out before execution of said contracts. I think understanding whether it's going to be a lump sum service or a task work order driven service, et cetera, who our primary contact. It's great that we have a matrix of contacts, but we need a primary contact. We need to know who's going to be handling our work on a day-to-day basis. I think what we can do is make a decision with certain caveats that allow the team to resolve those, come back
Yes.
to us before the execution, and then we can move forward.
I would like to add one comment that Jason did confirm in the
Yes.
oral presentations, and and my tech evaluators are here present, that they were part of the orals, and the orals does become binding and part of their contract. That Jason did confirm that he was going to be here in Miami. He was going to make himself available when needed. So he did state that in the oral presentations. And the oral presentations does become binding as part of their contract. And I could defer this to Rafael, that was present in as part of the TEC meeting, and it was present for the orals.
I would have
Yes,
a question then. If it is lump sum, usually with lump sum contracts, there's overhead, there's expenses, et cetera. How is that to be handled if
There should not
are
be.
the
There
expenses
should-
included? Because I know how we contract and all of the overhead and procurement or the expenses are
I don't believe
outside
travel
that,
costs
so.
was included, correct? I don't believe travel costs was part of additional service costs, is that correct?
Correct. The lump sum would include the travel costs.
Right.
It should
There was
it would
other
include-
expenditures such as copies and just nominal expenditures that were indirect expenses passed through. But travel, because of the fact that they had to have a local office, we were not going to reimburse for travel.
I just wanted to make sure that's clear because that
Yes,
can
absolutely,
become significant.
absolutely.
Madam Chair, just to follow up on what procurement said, yeah, Mr. Gonzalez did confirm that he would be establishing part-time residence here in Miami-Dade County for purposes of attending these meetings.
Okay, very good.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes, Executive Director.
Thank you. So I have heard all of the comprehensive board direction. One, conflict of interest, a primary point of contact for you as your direct counsel for the board, making sure that we identify lump sum versus the task work order process. I think we've landed on potentially lump sum based on what I think I'm
Yes.
hearing from the board. And then just overall logistics and mechanics on having a point of contact based on specialty area, the needs of the agency, also based on the board's needs as well. So I'm happy to proceed with that direction before, if the board approves, executing any contract on behalf of the agency.
Yeah, that would be excellent. I think from what I'm hearing, Jason has agreed to be the point person and be the one here. And I think that would alleviate a lot of concerns if we know that for all issues, we go to Jason. Jason can then delegate or assign to someone else. And I think that would be ideal.
Yes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rafael, he did confirm that in the orals. And that becomes part of their contract. It becomes binding.
Yes, he did.
Okay. So we're going to move to a vote on this item with the caveat, with the instructions to the executive director for the items to negotiate for the final contract, for the approval of this lump sum contract for general counsel services. So all those in favor say aye.
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 No nays, so it passes. So the next item on the regular agenda is item E, Engineering Board Policy Reviews. And I will now recognize Mr. Alston to introduce the item.
Great. Thank you again, Madam Chair. Again, board members, this is exciting. We are now on our round 2 of board policy reviews. As you know, at our last meeting, we did the first round of policies, and I appreciate each of your direction and due diligence giving myself and staff feedback on the revised policies that you'll see before you now for the second time by this governing board, which shows your leadership, your continuity, and focus on policy direction for the agency. What I like to do is turn things over to our Director of Engineering and Emergency Management, similar to how I did at the last meeting going through each policy. We'll do the same today. We'll outline what those significant recommendations or changes are or variances from the original policy. There's a new policy before you that we'll talk through. And again, I know that we've had individual conversations. I've had individual discussions with you on the policy. I anticipate there may be 1 or 2 additional items for consideration, maybe that will come back at a subsequent meeting, but I totally defer to the board. And Madam Chair, with your permission, if you would allow the director.
We recognize the director.
Thank you. So before you are the engineering agency policies. First, I'd like to thank our DOT partners that provided a wealth of comments and suggestions to the policies, and we've reviewed them and looked through them. One of the things that I want to note is that we reviewed all the policies to ensure that they are in compliance with all state laws. We also looked and made sure that we made the appropriate reference and applicability to all state policies and procedures as it relates to how we will implement these policies. So all that has been incorporated into the policies that we presented. And I'll just go briefly through each one that we've got here. So the active management policy, there was no substantive changes. What we did was that we expanded the Section 1 purpose to include examples of traffic management methodologies. Taking some of the comments from DOT, we deleted reference to signal maintenance because in reality, we don't maintain the signals here in the county. That's done mostly by Miami-Dade County. The aesthetic enhancements policy, this was reworded and expanded to really better define aesthetic enhancements for the agency. We also included sections for specific requirements that will allow us to deal with general aesthetic enhancements as well as the new lighting aesthetic enhancements. So all references to lighting aesthetics is part of the aesthetic enhancements policy. And what we did is that we refer to the aesthetic enhancements design guidelines manual, which we have established, and we are now in the process of updating to include everything that we've done in the past, plus any initiatives that would provide us to look at doing things in the future, but establishing processes and procedures using already established state guidelines and procedures, and also looking at giving the agency some flexibility to incorporate other measures as they see appropriate through the board and through how we implement the work program. The excess real property leasing, again, this is an existing policy. There were no substantive changes there. I think what we did mostly was include an asset management development of a database that would track and better organize our properties that we have and how we go about leasing properties that we currently have. Real property acquisition policy, again, confirmed all references to state laws and statutes. Given the 23 law, we wanted to make sure that everything was still in order. So we would, moving forward, any acquisition of land would follow state law. We also make reference to adhering to already established DOT procedures and policies.
Can I ask you a question on this policy revision? There's a change that says that the executive director is authorized to respond to a qualified business damage claim. This word qualified was added, and I wonder if that word qualified is explained. I don't like gray areas, so what makes a claim qualified?
I think what we would do here is following our DOT rules and procedures, we evaluate business damage claims, and I think the term qualified is really used as a valid claim. Anything that we would bring forward as potential compensation to a property acquisition would go through a review. So a qualified, I think the reference to a qualified business damage would be that it went through a process, reviewed, and that we're presenting it because we find validity in the claim.
Yes, no? No comments?
I know my team spent a great deal of time with this one and made sure that this policy followed FDOT's guidance and guidelines and our acquisition manuals. And I believe Juan is accurate in his depiction that it is considered to be a valid issue as opposed to an issue that may be raised that we determine is not valid and doesn't have any validity to
Okay.
it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
You may continue. I'm sorry for interrupting
No,
you.
it's okay. Then we've added a surplus real property disposition policy. This is a new policy. The reason we are adding this now is because historically we have not disposed of parcels or properties that the agency currently maintains. The reason we're adding it is because we are looking to do property disposition. A few years ago, we purchased a large amount of properties for projects that we had in the work program that are no longer moving forward. We've had them for a while, so they are somewhat of a financial burden now, maintaining properties that we don't need. So we're looking to dispose of those properties since we know those projects are not going to be coming online through those areas. So establishing a policy that clearly outlines how we would move about disposing of properties we felt was appropriate.
Board
If I could,
member-
Madam Chair. Oh,
Board Member Miller first, and then Ms. Ralston.
And this is something that I think all agencies actually do. We end up with remainders or change in direction where we may have purchased something as a advanced acquisition, and we're just making sure that this relates to GMX purchased properties, not those that are underlying fee owned by the state.
Correct. However, I will just make a note that any parcels that came to the agency through the transfer agreement that at some point would be determined not needed, we would set procedures that would consult with DOT. We've done this in the past where DOT would concur with the surplusing of a parcel that's no longer needed before we would do that. So DOT would need to give us approval, and
Right.
the procedures would outline that in the disposition policy.
I guess the procedure would, not the policy. I don't think the
Correct.
policy speaks to that, but
Yes.
the procedure does.
Procedures would, yes.
Mr. Alston?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I was only going to add to, I think, the prior comment from the director to just mention, I know we need to have a real property conversation. I think in our individual briefings, it has come up before. So this is the first step of having a policy mechanism in place. And then, of course, the board, you will then have a menu of options to make some decisions going forward. So I wanted to reference that this is step one, just to have a formal policy before you. And then, of course, you as a board will have a conversation around next steps and what should, the types of things that you like to consider as a board.
Yeah, for the record, we as a board have not made any policy decisions on what projects to continue or not at this point, so. Does that conclude your,
That concludes my presentation of the policies.
thank you very much. So, do we vote to approve, Board Member Miller?
I would ask that we, if we're going to move forward, that we hold on the aesthetic enhancement policy. The department did just provide comments to that. They haven't all been incorporated yet, so I would like to see that incorporation before we move forward. So if we, I assume we're going to move forward with this, I would just ask that we not include the aesthetic enhancement policy until that can get revised.
Okay, so we're going to vote on moving forward with all other policies and postponing the aesthetics policy until our next board meeting. All those in favor of approving the revised policies, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays. It passes. So now we're going to move to reports. Our first report is the interim executive director's report. Since the full report has been shared, I would like to recognize Mr. Alston to provide any additional highlights for the board and the public. Mr. Alston.
Yes, good morning again. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning again, board members. I'm excited to deliver today's report once again. As you know, great things are happening here at GMX as we continue to focus on many of the areas that you have asked myself and the team to focus on around governance, financial stability, overall operations, continuity of services, communications, and people and culture. As I jump first to governance, kudos are in order for our board chair for being fully confirmed by the Florida Senate. Again, this is one example, another example to the listening public that shows continuity of this board, your dedication, your leadership, and overall continuity of the board. You do have the reminder before you of all of the board meeting dates which you set at a prior meeting. As you know now, for our May meeting, we'll focus on HR, administration, communications, and now we'll add the aesthetic enhancement policy also to the May meeting as well. Another example of governance in action, and I know our vice chair sees this. This is a clear example of you, the board, conducting our ride-alongs, taking a deep dive on all the roadways and key projects that are coming up in the proposed budget that you will be seeing very, very soon. I know that each of you have already set your budget briefings, which I'll talk about momentarily, but we look forward to welcoming each of you very soon on the ride-alongs in advance of the May board meeting, which each of you have tasked myself with making sure that we put together. Around financial stability, as you know, we continue to have a series of conversations, and we're really engaged with all of our financial partners. Ben Watkins and his team with the Division of Bond Finance, Alexis Lambert also on the team, Bond Counsel, broader legal team has been very, very supportive, along with our board treasurer, who continues to review, along with our board chair, a series of documents that are required as a board on behalf of the agency. Good news, as you know, board members, Madam Chair, Fitch released its analytical decision affirming the agency's bond rating and stable outlook. So this is a great example of your leadership based on policies that you continue to review and put in place for the agency. So you should be publicly commended for that. Our team also welcomed Moody's about 2 weeks ago. I think that's right, 3 weeks ago. Here at the agency, had a great conversation around industry trends. I think some concerns maybe that they have seen, not here, not at GMX, but just observations as well in the industry. But good conversation, and we'll continue to be engaged with all of our rating agency partners as we know that they continue to provide valuable feedback for the agency. As I shared with, I believe, both the board chair and board treasurer, we are 95%, I think I can say that, Madam CFO, almost complete with our next voluntary disclosure to the market. We are working with our bond counsel, our broader legal team, and we'll be prepared to share an initial draft with the board. I'm hoping by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. That's at least my target, so we can get something out that speaks to all of the substantive changes, achievements, and operations of the agency. So more to come, but I'll make sure that you have that as a board. As you know, we kicked off the budget and work program cycle based on your direction to me. You identified 4 core areas that have served as the core of the budget that we are, I'm gonna use this percentage again, 95% complete, because there's a few key items that I know we have to think through over the next several days in advance of our budget briefings with you, the board. You have the full timeline in front of you, and I know you've seen it, board members, so I won't go through all of it. The takeaway, we are on track, and I can assure you that you will see a initial recommended budget coming before you during the budget briefing, and that we will, of course, receive your feedback and direction guiding the final budget that will be published on April 20th as required. I'll jump straight into people and culture. We are excited. As you know, we continue to bring on key individuals at the agency. We have recently hired our facilities and roadway manager, and he is joining us in the back. Carl, would you wave your hand? He comes to us from a prior government agency. He served as a facilities superintendent there. And it continues to do great work, and he's been on board with us now for several weeks, so we're excited to have him on board. Our human resources generalist, and I know our HR manager is also present, doesn't join us until Monday, but I wanted to give the board the heads up that we have filled that vacancy. As you'll recall, I think that we had probably 2 or 3 months ago. We're excited that Ms. Inya Williams will be joining us on Monday. So this is another example of our leadership team really highlighting all the great things and great employees here at the agency. So our leadership team, in conjunction with HR, sponsored our Employee Appreciation Day back on March 1st. So again, kudos to all of our employees. Thank you for all that you do. And as you see, members of the board, this was a great opportunity really for us just to say a big thank you because each of them, many who are in the audience today, work hard each and every day, along with the consultants and contractors who are here. And we appreciate all that you do for the agency as well. I'm going to jump to communications and public engagement. We continue to have a series of regular meetings with all of our key stakeholders. Let me do one follow-up action item before the board treasurer, which I know he will ask, around county correspondence. So the good news, based on your direction to me, members of the board, you asked for us to send correspondence on the two outstanding reimbursements back to the county. We have done that. Just literally in the series of the past 7 days, I've had 3 conversations, latest 2 days ago, with my counterpart at the county. It sounds promising. However, they are contemplating how to do the reimbursement and who the reimbursement, what name should be on the reimbursement. So I've asked my counterpart to work with his team, which I know he is doing. But I do want to go on the record to say that we've had a series of conversations. It seems to be positive, and I will keep you updated on both the $8.2 million and the $5 million reimbursement. But I did want to go on the record to say that my counterpart, we've had a series of great conversations. I'll jump to TPO action, which I have shared, and I think you know the TPO, and I'm just going to just jump straight to the last page of the story, decided to not take any action up to 6 months on 2 pending items. One, the decision on the appointments from the TPO to GMX, and then secondly, on reinstating our board member and the TPO's board member pages in the toll agency slot that is designated by the governor. So I believe the EPC took a position that they would not reconsider action for up to 6 months. I've had a series, as I've talked to board member Pages and board member Miller, of discussions with the executive director, very, very open, very engaging. But ultimately, the EPC and that board has made a decision. I did want to take this time to recognize, and I don't see them physically in the room, but they are on premises, state officials who are joining us here today. Our chief of staff, who represents the Florida Department of Transportation, also the Assistant Secretary of Engineering and Operations, also representing the Florida Department of Transportation. Both Lita Kelly and Will Watts are here. And I know that they're on premises, and I believe they will probably come in, board members, just to say hello to each of you because they're excited to now be here at GMX. Another follow-up item, and I know the vice chair is listening intently. We do have a great update, Madam Vice Chair, on the Google feedback and your direction to us. I can assure you that now the agency's picture does reflect GMX on Google. There are still 1 or 2 additional steps that, based on analytics, that we need to take, but we are getting there, and there is movement. So I did want to report that as another follow-up back to the board. I'll move on to our South Florida Saves programs, and each of you board members, I think you have seen, and thank you, Board Member Blanco. I know you have sent some messages and comments to the team just around marketing and messaging, ads. We have received overwhelming positive feedback, but I want to jump to the slide that really demonstrates your leadership as a board and your commitment because it really shows our commuters really seeing toll relief. In the month of January, we can report about 186,000 customers received relief based on your leadership as a board. That equates to $1.36 million. And in the month of February, almost 180,000 of our customers benefit from this program. So again, great news because we're seeing actual benefits to our commuters and those who use all of our roadways in South Florida. So this slide actually is a follow-up to your recommendation, Madam Chair. I was excited and humbled to represent the agency in Washington, D.C. at the IBTTA Leadership Academy. Thank you again, Madam Chair, for your vote of confidence and the board. It was an awesome opportunity, really, to join other transportation and toll leaders from around the country. There were some also at our sister agencies, both CFX and THEA, and the Turnpike, actually, all present in Washington, D.C. as well. We discussed a series of hot topics, understanding how they got through the pandemic, both pre and post. There was a lot of conversation, as I've shared with the team, on several policies, including, just discussion around preparing for disasters and how they vary based on region and based on the state. So I'm excited because I believe some of my classmates, also board members, may be watching, that I'm a part of the Sweet 16 class. And I know we have a few other IBTTA graduates that are also here as well. On the right, you'll see members of the board. That was me leading a 45-minute open session on tolling, transportation, supplier diversity, and engagement, and how it can occur regardless of the type of state that you're in. So we had an awesome conversation about great things happening in the state of Florida, but particularly happening here at GMX. So I thought I would just share that with you. And I know also Madam Vice Chair wanted a good recap, and I wanted to provide that to the board. So what's ahead for the May board meeting? We will have a presentation, very detailed presentation that you'll see in advance on the budget and work program. We will start with your goals. We'll recognize and outline how those goals will filter down to all the projects and initiatives by department. we'll recognize and highlight any new initiatives, ongoing initiatives, and services. So you'll see that that'll be coming to you as well. The third round of board policies, again, I've mentioned on HR, administration, communication, and the one item that you've asked to come back to the May meeting. And of course, we'll continue the board member ride-alongs in advance of the May meeting as well. And then, Madam Chair, the last item I have for the board's consideration is a motion to accept this report. But I'm also asking for 2 additional areas of authorization with your consideration. Authorizing the interim executive director to take any administrative, operational, or budgetary actions in between meetings, meaning between this meeting and the May meeting, to remove any duplicative programs and services. And also that the interim executive director will provide an update to the board upon taking any of those stated actions. So that is the additional recommendation that I ask for the board's consideration, and I am happy to answer any questions and receive feedback and direction from the board.
Any comments?
No, thank you for the report. Appreciate that, Tori. I think it is important, as things may progress quickly over the next few months, that we make sure that we're aligned and that we're not being duplicative in some program areas. So I would appreciate the opportunity to make sure that we're aligning ourselves with anything that may be happening statewide.
Absolutely. Agree. Vice Chair Perez, do you have any comments?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. So is there a motion to accept the interim executive director's report and authorize the interim executive director to take any administrative, operational, or budgetary actions in between meetings to remove duplicative programs and or services, and the interim executive director will provide an update to the board upon taking any such actions?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes. Next on the agenda are informational items, and the procurement report has been provided to the board with updated contract executed and open procurements and requires no action today. Are there any questions on the procurement report? So, hearing no comments, we move forward onto announcements. I just wanted to go back before I make the announcements for our next meeting. When you attended that conference, Tori, I'm very happy that you did. I remember sharing with you an article from the Wall Street Journal regarding fraud on tolling when people cover their license plates, and I'm sure that's a problem around the state. Do we know how much financially it affects our system?
I'm going to defer to our Director of Tolling and Transportation Technology and our CFO. I know we've had a series of conversation on this aspect.
The short answer is no, we do not know. I don't think it's significant though. There's a variety of the reasons. People don't have their sun pass mounted on their windshield. They have a trailer. There's a variety. They have license plates that's faded. But as far as a number or the magnitude of it, we don't believe it's a significant magnitude. But I can't give you a specific answer.
Thank you.
I don't know if you can, Claudio.
Agreed. We know the percentage. I can't tell you off the top of my head the revenue, but like Marie just mentioned, there's a variety of issues why we cannot tow people. The new fad seems to be bike racks. So from bike racks to plates that come down to reflective shields that can only be seen from a certain angle. We've seen it, and we've been working with law enforcement. And then other agencies are facing the same thing. So it's a statewide problem. It's not specific to GMX.
Is there like a specific fine that people get charged for committing such fraud? Because I know law enforcement, I've seen them stop people, but I don't know if this is like a criminal charge or a fine.
It's not criminal.
I know our general counsel or future general counsel is in the house. but he's not in the hot seat yet, but I would be asking him that.
Someone maybe get a citation for altering their plate, including a tag that blocks or obscures their tag in any way. I don't believe, though, that it's a criminal offense.
Thank you. Yes, Board Member Pages.
Can I expand the question a little bit to include our collections of license plate collection, as opposed to the transponder?
And if I could, through the chair,
Yes.
expand the response just to talk globally about collection rates. You know, historically, and I know we've had the conversations, we'll do it openly, where we are as an agency. So I'm kind of prepping you where we are as an agency, what we've seen in the state, our other partners, and the industry. So if we just kind of have that global conversation in advance of what may be coming back to you for consideration as we prepare for the May board meeting.
Sure. So currently our penetration rate is roughly 52% to 48, which means that 52% roughly of users are getting told via the transponders, and the 48% is getting told by plate. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a SunPass. So what that means that the 48% that gets told, right, when it all is said and done, so a picture may be taken, but in the back end of the system, if it's determined that that plate is associated with an account, that's a good standing account, then they get charged the reduced SunPass rate. So it might be someone that maybe has a SunPass that's not working properly or it's not set properly. So ultimately they'll get changed to an ITOL. When you do the percentages again, it comes back to our original penetration rate, which is roughly 70% that are getting charged the SunPass rate, and then 30% the toll by plate. Now, we've had conversations with the Turnpike and with THIA and CFX, and it is in line with what they're seeing as well. There was a stark change, and it was reflected by both THIA and the Turnpike that right after COVID, we saw a drop in our penetration rate. So different users are using the system at different times, and so they're seeing the same roughly 14-15% of all users that get charged as a toll by plate will eventually change into an electronic transponder charge. So we thought maybe it was a system error, but it's just statewide. That's where we are now. Regarding collections, our collections are not doing very well right now. There's a key missing component that I think is very key, and it's the ability to issue registration holds. So in the past, that was basically our biggest hammer that we had, where if you went through 3 cycles of billing. If you didn't pay your bill, it would go to collections, and a registration hold would be placed on your account. So when you went to go renew your tag at the end of the year, you had to settle all your accounts in order to renew. That has been temporarily suspended. So we've been in conversation